Honorable Speaker, I am very grateful to you for allowing me to participate on a very important and critical bill which has come before this august House. I am sure this bill will mark a beginning of a new era in the field of information revolution. Sir, all modern societies, or any society for that matter, will require a strong and purposeful government to steer them. In our own country, the government expenditure accounts for nearly 30% of our gross national product, both at the central level and at the level of states and local bodies. At the same time, we find that social and economic imperatives require our government to intervene in all economic and social affairs. Therefore, I feel that the efficiency and effectiveness of governmental processes are the critical variables. This will determine how we are functioning and to what extent we are able to discharge the responsibilities entrusted to us by our electorate. Sir, as far as power of the government is concerned, I have always believed that it is the sacred trust that the society has given to the government. We, as part of the government, have to spend in taking into account the good of the largest number of people. Therefore, it becomes all the more obligatory on our part to see that there is right correlation between the expenditure and efficiency. It is a common knowledge that we all talk about wastefulness of expenditure and about corruption prevailing in our system. Hence, it is very important for us to explore new and effective mechanisms to ensure that we all do our duties with a sense of responsibility. This is the guiding spirit behind this Right to Information Bill that is now under consideration of this august House. Sir, now the question comes as to what is the secret of successful functioning of any democratic institution. In my view, the key to the successful functioning of any democratic polity lies in the ability of a citizen to observe and evaluate the functioning of their elected representatives. The common man should be able to make an informed judgment about the performance of their elected representatives. This is possible only if there is an easy availability of necessary information for a citizen to arrive at a decision. Then we have got the system to checks and balances at different levels. This system has made all of us proud of our ability to match the goal of economic development. In this context, I would say that it is the common man and the common women of this country who is the focal point of our democratic system. He or she is the seeker of information and the final judge of our performance. This government, sir, has made a commitment not only to work for the welfare of the common man but also to strengthen his or her role as the architect of our destiny. It is in this background that today we are discussing this Right to Information Bill in this House. This is possible only when our institutions function in a transparent, responsive, and accountable manner. The Right to Information Bill, sir, will bring into force another right that will empower the citizen in this regard. This will bring into effect a critical right for enforcing other rights. This will also provide an opportunity to fill a vital gap in this regard. The bill under consideration is more far-reaching and effective. I am very grateful to all concerned for having played a very important role in bringing into focus major drawbacks in the legislation. The present bill has the widest possible reach, covering the central government, the state governments, Panchayati Raj institutions, local bodies, and so on. This bill talks about access to information which is simple, easy, time-bound, and inexpensive. It has provided for certain stringent penalties for failing to provide information in any way. In fact, the bill has imposed certain obligations on agencies and organizations to disclose information. Sir, one of the important features of the present bill is the independent appeal mechanism through the appointment of central and state information commissioners. This mechanism has made the right a potent instrument for good governance. Sir, here I would like to say that many honorable members have raised many concerns and questions during the course of discussion on this bill. I would only like to say that everyone should see the bill in a positive spirit and not as a draconian law for the purpose of paralyzing the government. This is an instrument for improving the relationship between the government and its citizens so that it becomes a friendly, caring, and effective government functioning for the good of our people. I hope that this would be used towards better performance. Sir, I would like to voice my deep sense of appreciation to the mover of this bill for the sensitivity and the concern that he has displayed in introducing this bill. This bill concerns the welfare and the well-being of the children of our country. I would also like to voice my appreciation to the other honorable members for the spontaneity with which they have participated in the deliberations. I have listened with rapt attention to the speeches made by all the honorable members. This bill talks about insertion of a new article in the Constitution. The proposed amendment says that the state shall endeavor to provide free, nutritious food to those children who are being provided free and compulsory education by the state. Sir, before we discuss about the necessity and desirability of introducing such a bill, I would like to dwell briefly on the genesis of this. Let us first talk about the present day status of the midday meals scheme that is presently in existence in many of our schools. I would like to bring to your notice and through you to the notice of other honorable members of the House that the idea of introducing a midday meals schemes was mooted by our present Prime Minister at the time when he was the Finance Minister of the country. I may inform you that this idea was conceptualized long before, and we were also able to bring into operation a centrally sponsored scheme to boost universal primary education and also to improve the nutrition status of our children in the primary schools. The point that I would like to make here is that if we really intend to bring in welfare schemes and programs for the targeted sections of the society like the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, women and children, we can do it independent of the fact whether or not there are enabling guidelines in the Constitution. Sir, given the political will and the financial viability, any government at any point of time is free to introduce welfare measures for any targeted sections of the society. I can assure you that we will be able to march forward a welfare society with giant and rapid strides. I do not think that we need to resort to any kind of constitutional amendment for bringing in such things. Sir, I would now like to bring to the notice of this House certain facts of this scheme. The National Program of Nutritional Support to Primary Education, or the Midday Meals Scheme, was launched on the 15th August 1950 to give boost to universal primary education. It was expected to increase enrollment, attendance, retention, along with improving the nutritional status of the children in the primary classes in the government schools and the government-aided schools. Subsequently, the program was extended to cover all the children studying in schools. The program provides for the distribution of cooked meals to children through the local implementing agencies. The central government provides food grains free of cost. The state governments and the union territory governments meet the cost of conversion of food grains into cooked meals. In addition to this, the central government also provides assistance towards the cost of conversion of these grains into cooked meals. The midday meals are now being supplied to children in the drought-prone areas also during the summer vacation. The scheme is now being implemented in convergence with the rural and urban development schemes for adequately meeting the infrastructural requirements. This program is being implemented in a very decentralized manner with the involvement of local level agencies. Women belonging to the self help groups in many cases are doing the cooking work. Besides, the state governments are also contributing from their resources for the betterment of this program to improve the quality of meal. Today, all the states are implementing the program. It is a happy thing to note that social equality is fostered here through children sharing the meals with one another. The most important thing is that the nutrition of children at an early age is very imperative, particularly in rural areas, and the government should apply free, hygienic, and nutritious food to children. This would make a great impact and ensure free and compulsory education to children. This would not only improve the attendance but reduce the dropout rates also. We firmly believe that our children are the greatest wealth of our nation. We therefore stand committed to our children's well-being and welfare. The shortcomings and the deficiencies of the ongoing midday meal scheme have been effectively pointed out and they have been taken note of. The government would definitely look into them to see that the program is implemented effectively throughout the country.